laging pinagpili na daan. Ngunit sabi natin ng komunista, hanggang ngayon, sinasabi silang ganyan.
The Philippines is a country that knows the agony of dictatorship. During Marcos's 2-decade stranglehold on power, tens of thousands of people were arrested and tortured, many never to be seen again.
All those who died, disappeared, and were tortured during those dark years are here to commemorate and let the nation remember that we should never again let a dictatorship rule our country.
Many fear if the nation doesn't remember, history will repeat itself. There are signs already that it is. Certainly, Imelda is back. And in her version of the past, the woman who to so many epitomises the evil of the Marcos years need offer no apologies. Far from it.
We are the victims of not only our legal rights, our human rights, our constitutional right, but our divine right, our sacred right of home, our homeland. You see all my friends here? So you see, they're friends. Here is Fidel Castro driving for me.
Under previous presidents, Imelda Marcos found it difficult even to return to the country. Now she's back in favour at the palace.
And I noticed that you've got the current president up there in pride of place.
Oh yes, that's President Estrada.
And the woman accused of bleeding her country dry is trying to do a deal with the Estrada government to share the missing billions.
What is the amount of money that you're actually negotiating about at the moment?
I really have lost track because they talk about money and the resources of Marcos. Plus the fact that, you know, my relationship with Marcos was romantic, not economic, and I really did not know too much about this. And I'm looking here, you know, and then they're just telling me, oh, this is this much, this is this much.
While the former First Lady has been wooing the palace, in the streets below, Filipinos have been burning the president they elected so overwhelmingly last year. Cory Aquino, in her symbolic People Power yellow, has once again been leading thousands in protest against the conduct of a president. And once again, in this strongly Catholic country, the Church, led by Jaime Cardinal Sin, is speaking out.
The corrupt government of immoral leaders is a breeding ground for lawlessness and radical ideologies.
When Estrada took to the streets during his election campaign last year, he didn't look like a dictator in the making. A former movie star with a reputation for womanising, Estrada, known as Erat or Buddy, rode to power on his promises to help the poor. Then he was derided as a bumbling incompetent. But once in office, Estrada chose powerful friends.
Take a snapshot of who are around him, and you will see a lot of the people who were with Marcos.
As well as Imelda, there's Marcos's closest business and political associate, Dando Cuanco, who's back at the helm of Miguel Beer after a decade out of favour. Lucio Chan, another Marcos favourite, owns the national airline. And then there's President Estrada's right-hand man, his executive secretary, Ronaldo Zamora. The last time he was in the palace, he was running it for President Marcos.
I really wish people would not raise the question too often, but it is there. It is something that I have to live with. In the end, President Estrada will have to decide whether I have become such a liability that I will have to go, and I will go. I will go quietly.
Let us be vigilant against forces and individuals who think only of their selfish interests to the detriment of our country and our people.
We're saying no. Let's not forgive and forget. Let's not let bygones be bygones. They should not be forgotten because when you forget, history might repeat itself.
Sa lahat ng paraan na ginawa natin hanggang sa tayo'y muling naging malayang.
The fear that Estrada is following in Marcos's footsteps is stirring the same grassroots emotions that brought people power to the streets in 1986. Dodi Lincalco is Cory Aquino's spokesperson.
It's a call for freedom. It's a call to stand up for freedom.
We are here to remember the lessons of the past so that we may not repeat them anymore.
Now frail and ill, Cardinal Sin is calling on younger leaders to carry on the fight. In the exotic wildlife sanctuary at the back of his suburban chapel, you'll find the priest who just might be the next generation's Cardinal Sin. But for now, he's just known as the Serpent Priest.
People think I'm a mad priest. They called me the serpent priest.
An affinity for poisonous snakes is an unusual attribute to bring to the priesthood. But when it comes to dictators, Father Robert himself can be venomous.
The Marcos years was poison. No, we were dying slowly, and Marcos was killing us left and right. I had friends who were tortured and executed during those times, and so we have to tell them, Marcos was poison. And dictatorship is poison. And if we don't know that it is poison, then we will start drinking the same poison. And this is what Erap and the people around him are beginning to sell.
As more and more comparisons are made between Marcos and the new president, September 21 is shaping up as a critical day of protest. It's the anniversary of the day 27 years ago when Marcos declared martial law, and what had been a democracy became a dictatorship. President Estrada will neither hear nor see the protests. He's out of the country. But from that other former dictatorship, Chile, he tells Filipinos to forget what happened under martial law.
Let's forget it. He made that statement. And that's a terrible statement. It's like Germans saying we should forget Hitler and the Holocaust.
But these protesters are not just dwelling on the past. They're fearful Estrada is about to tear down the very foundation of their future freedom. The president plans to change the cherished Aquino constitution, which gave Filipinos back their democracy.
We're not sure that we want this cast of characters, these congressmen who are obviously, many of whom are obviously motivated by self-interest, to do the amending of the Constitution.
The most controversial of the president's constitutional changes would allow foreigners to own more land and industry in the Philippines. Opening the doors to international corporations would benefit the economy and the people, so the argument goes.
The president thinks, why don't we liberalize the economy? Why don't we do it by opening up even the Constitution? That is how he helped the poor.
There are people identified with the Marcoses who want this law passed because they have been buying land left and right. They will be the first to sell land and the first to make a killing.
I'm not sure that the president will gain anything personally out of this. I certainly don't think so. Whether his friends will or will not, that is something for experience to tell us eventually.
Father Robert doesn't need to wait. He's sure that his friends, the poor, will not benefit in any way from the president's constitutional changes.
So far, he has promised a lot, and he continues to promise. And so his latest promise is, if we change the charter, then you will not be poor anymore. And that's a lousy promise.
These people have, of course, heard promise after political promise for decades. Just like Estrada, the Marcoses saw the poor as their power base.
All these projects for the poor, the delivery of basic service, water, power, food, shelter, I was very active. And I had to keep my feet intact. And so I had these padrille shoes.
Regardless of the criticism, Estrada is vowing to go ahead with the changes. And just as with Marcos, it's being made increasingly clear to a now nervous press that what the president wants, he gets.
He's clearly out to intimidate the press. He's not using the guns, he's not using martial law. All right, the cronies are doing the job for him.
Herman Garcia was the publisher of the oldest newspaper in the Philippines, the Manila Times. But 3 months ago, after the president began a libel suit against the paper, pressure was put on the owner to sell. The next day, the Manila Times was closed.
So who closed your paper?
A crony of the president. Okay, he pressed for the selling of the paper, actually to him and to his other partners.
I have a personal stake in this.
Ronaldo Zamora certainly does. The president's executive secretary was the subject of the corruption expose that the president sued the paper over.
At the moment we see newspapers being out of line, we will still take that. If they go even more out of line, we are prepared to take that. But if they go beyond a certain line in the sand, then perhaps even newspapermen will understand why we have to go to court and to defend our own personal integrity. That is not a threat against press freedom. That is a threat against people who tell lies.
It was his own paper.
For Herman Garcia, the echoes of the past are strong. Like so many people we spoke to in the Philippines, he too has a story of terror under Marcos. Then it was his father who was the newspaper publisher.
He was shut in his office when he refused to agree to the demand of the government official that he stops the publication of a story involving himself.
And Garcia wouldn't be surprised to see more deaths under this president.
But if somebody still probably persists in being critical, or probably finds a very sensitive material involving a crony, it just might happen.
They might get killed.
Yes. Some can still get killed. I don't doubt that.
Dawn on the 21st of September, the anniversary of the declaration of martial law. Father Robert says Mass while the final touches are put on his vehicle for the protest. A pushcart, the slowest and lowliest form of transport in the Philippines.
It's better for you just to go against traffic here.
Just as in 1986, the political activists in the church have joined forces.
It's better for us to go down here.
The serpent priest, accompanied by a team of rosary reciting nuns, pushes the Virgin Mary out into the Manila traffic.
Hail Mary, full of grace.
Mary on the card is a symbol of Mary who really is Mary. Mary who never really left her people, the poor and the lowly of Jerusalem, and now the poor and the lowly of the Philippines.
Gathering supporters as they go, Father Robert and the cart pushers make their pilgrimage through the city, stopping at schools to warn the young about dictatorship.
What's his full name? What did he do? Martial law. What is martial law?
Not only do the school children not remember, they're now contending with conflicting messages.
Well, it looks so funny already at this point in time because for me, it was the most enlightened period of our country.
Can you believe that? With her multi-carat diamonds saying that today should be celebrated because it is the greatest thing that her husband ever did. Because they want us to forget so that they can laugh all the way to the bank.
Across Manila, people are gathering, tens of thousands voicing their anger. Not only at the memory of martial law, but against President Estrada, his powerful friends, and the increasingly dictatorial stance of the government. "12 hours after they began their march, Father Robert and his followers reached Manila's Santo Domingo Church, in time for the media crush as Cardinal Sin and Cory Aquino arrive. 6 o'clock, and it's not only church bells ringing out. Led by Cory Aquino and Cardinal Sin, the city erupts in a barrage of noise. The President can't hear them. He's still overseas, but perhaps he should be listening. The church and the woman in yellow brought down President Marcos. They now seem determined to exorcise his ghost.